Welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jamicarlacio, coming to you weekly from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As a positive intelligence, or PQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop a mindset and an approach to life that regards problems as situations that help us learn and grow. Mental fitness is like a gym for our mind. The more we work out, the stronger we become. That strength is our inner sage. PQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables us to develop and sustain a positive relationship with ourselves and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button, making the podcast visible to more people who can enjoy the benefits of PQ. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome everybody to this third in the fourth series of Awareness, Acceptance, and Action. In the previous episode, I talked about personal awareness and personal relationships and how to transform conflict into a stronger relationship. So it was the difference between losing a friend and maintaining or strengthening a relationship. And the thing is, we can choose how to respond to situations. Once we're aware that we've got, a judge and a lot of other, saboteurs who are pretending to be us, I think of them as ventriloquists because sometimes we hear them as our own voice, but they're not us, right? We are at our very core, perfectly imperfect human beings. We were created in love, for love, and by love. And so we weren't created to have a judge, those didn't come with the package when we were born, right? So there were 10 saboteurs. They did not come. They came afterward by what other people said, what our culture said, what other family members said. And so that's not ours, and we don't have to own that anymore. And so that's probably thing one. And then thing two is once we recognize all these saboteurs, we can learn how to avoid them or how to ignore them and strengthen the other side, which is staying in the moment. Where are your feet right now? Are your feet on the floor right here? That's the present moment, okay? You can't have a foot in the past because it's gone, and you can't have a foot in the future because it hasn't happened yet. And in fact, every moment is a future. So every moment is a present moment. And if you've read Eckhart Tolle, his work, The Power of Now, he talks about that. There is no such thing as a future, although because of our minds, we sort of envision it as a future, right? We imagine, and oftentimes we take from the past and then we imagine a future based on past events. And that usually spells trouble if something in our past has been painful or we felt like we failed or something. Then that's likely the attitude we're going to take when we see that that might be the thing that happens in the future. And we don't want to do that anymore. We want to stay grounded. And several of the ways that we stay grounded, especially if something is coming up, is rub your fingertips together. I know I've said this a few times, but I cannot tell you how many. I think I don't even know if I still have ridges on my fingers, but I rub my fingertips together. I color, I breathe, I look at something, I focus my vision on something else. And as long as my vision is focused on something else, I am not thinking about my saboteurs. I'm not listening to them. So there are tactile ways, there's the breath, there are visual ways, and there are oral ways. You can start listening to sounds. So a lot of different ways, and I'm sure you can even think of more that work for you to keep you grounded in the present. Music is a great one. When I'm feeling kind of down, I turn on my favorite music, and I like to have it loud. So I turn it up really loud and I sing to it. And that keeps me right in the present moment with the music, with the lyrics, and with these good feelings that the music brings me. So let's see, today, I want to just share a personal experience I had about a workplace conflict. And this will demonstrate how important it is to exercise the sage muscle. So I had a job where I worked closely with 7 people, and 4 of them were in my cohort. So there were 5 of us in a particular cohort, and we met daily. We met daily every morning, and then we met weekly for a staff meeting. And because we worked in close quarters, we were always passing each other, or we're having lunch at the same place or whatever. And on the second day, there arose a conflict that I wasn't even aware it was a conflict at first, but it arose. And as the days and the weeks and the months went on, the conflict got even worse. So there was a lot of tension in the office. We both wanted to avoid each other. And I, especially my judge and my avoider, were at work. My judge wanted to make him wrong, and my victim wanted to make him wrong. And my avoider said, let's just forget all about this and get out of the way and not even talk about the conflict, not even touch it, not even try not to run into this person. And if you happen to be at the elevator, take another elevator. And so not addressing the conflict and avoiding it at all costs. That's how I handled it. And it didn't resolve the conflict. It didn't resolve the tension. And in fact, it just seemed to get worse. And what's more is it affected the entire office. So when the tension was there and we were both in the same place, the tension was so thick, you could barely breathe. And so I knew that it was affecting the office, but I didn't know to what extent, and I didn't really understand what I had to do with it. And it did take a little processing for me, a lot of emotional processing for me to realize that no matter what the conflict, I have growing edges, I have blind spots, and so does the other person. But again, that person's blind spots or growing edges aren't my business. That's between that person and however they relate to a source or a divine or a God or something like that. It turns out that the person is ordained. So I know that, God is big in his life. But what happened was when I realized how much of a part I played, I decided that I couldn't just go on and leave that bridge burned. So I went out and repaired it. I called every single person on the team and I apologized to them for the part I played in making the office environment uncomfortable. Now, if I were exercising PQ muscles, I hadn't had any positive intelligence training at that time. But if I were exercising those muscles, when I noticed the conflict and when I noticed that there was some kind of tension or there was something going on that I didn't know about or I didn't understand, I would have asked him, hey, can we go grab a cup of coffee in the cafeteria? I want to just find out what's going on and see if we can't just kind of talk about this and iron out any differences we have. And if I had done that and the person agreed to have coffee with me, we could have discovered what the tension was between us and where the growing edges were rubbing up against each other. And I could have listened to him. I would have employed my empathy muscle and listened and put myself in his shoes. And I would have been able to say, okay, so he's a human being. He's not perfect and he's vulnerable. He's got things going on in his life. He has a whole lot of life experience that he brings to bear on this job, as I do. So there were so many things that I hadn't even considered, but if I had used a sage muscle of empathy, I would have found out more about him and I would have not made assumptions and I would not have made him wrong. And there wouldn't be that crazy tension that was in our office all the time. And so that's the power of sage. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this podcast, because I have learned so much. I talk about change your mind, change your life, and it's very true. And that's my mantra. When I have changed my mind, my whole life changes, because every thought I think leads into a behavior or a belief. And then that goes on to all of my interactions, every action I take about my job, whatever it is. And, I'd rather take action on good things. I'd rather take action and be empathetic. I would rather see a situation not as a problem, but as a challenge. And then how can I navigate around it? How can I do something differently? And that's the way I want to continue to live the rest of my life. I'm no spring chicken, but I am not super old. So I still have a lot of years ahead of me to start really practicing this way of life. And it really has changed everything for me. So on the next episode, the last episode in this series, I'm going to be joined by a positive intelligence coach, Demetra Moore, and she's going to share a little bit about her work with clients on the subject of awareness, acceptance, and action. And if you want to schedule a time to get to know me better and see if working with me would be a good fit, check out the show notes. My information is there and my calendar is there. And until then, I will see you at the PQ Gym.